Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on this Saturday afternoon as we bring you the St. Clair County EMA daily update. This week we've tried to bring you information covering a wide spectrum of information that we feel is needed as we work our way through this crisis. We've talked to doctors, we've talked to the healthcare industry from the health department, we've talked to the colonel from Scott Air Force Base, we've had the mental health workers in here with the child psychologist, trying to answer all the questions that's been asked of us. And I'm happy to say today that we've got another special guest with us that's going to look at another part of the puzzle that's being impacted. But first, I want to introduce Chairman Mark Kern, who's got some numbers to relay today. Welcome, Chairman.
Thank you, Herb. So I'm bringing numbers from the St. Clair County Health Department, COVID-19 testing statistics. As of 2 o'clock today, the St. Clair County state lab totals are 44 people have been tested. 3 people are positive, and that number remains the same and has been the same for the past couple of days. Those testing negative, there are 33, and there are still 8 tests that are pending. The BJC Memorial Drive-Thru Clinic private lab totals, they've tested 8, and all of those 8 tests are still pending, so we don't have anything on those. The current state of Illinois totals, they've tested 6,247 people in the state of Illinois. 753 have tested positive, and that's an increase of 168. There are 6 deaths reported in Illinois from COVID-19. 1 new death in Cook County within the past 24 hours. And we have heard that in the media in St. Louis that St. Louis County has also reported their first death for COVID-19, so that death is in our region. Madison County, in addition, now has 2 cases of the COVID virus. So it's important that we remain vigilant. This is a highly contagious virus. It's important that we continue to practice good hygiene. Those things, washing your hands, covering your cough, staying 6 feet away, practicing your social distancing, and staying at home, which we're going to be addressing later. The governor's order asking people to, mandating that people stay home, I think is an extremely important part of this process to keep this spread from growing, to keep the levels manageable so that the hospitals don't become overwhelmed. Continue to check on your friends, your family, and your neighbors. And let's remember our churches and our nonprofits. Their income stream has been cut to 0, and yet they're out in the communities serving people, feeding people, providing the type of service that you need during an incident like this. So remember those churches and nonprofits. Tomorrow we will have a pastor on our program just filling us in on how churches are dealing with the COVID virus during this time, and perhaps giving us some suggestions as to how we can all be a part of helping the community to deal with this epidemic. So at this time, we're very lucky and very happy to have Wendy File from the Greater Belleville Chamber of Commerce. Wendy came out today on a Saturday to fill us in on the business community and how the business community is dealing with COVID-19. Wendy, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. I'm happy I could be here today to answer some of the questions about the business community. It is being impacted at numbers that we can't even imagine right now. There's actually no statistics out there for this kind of information right now because this has never happened before. So we've checked with multiple sources to see what the impact numbers would be, and everyone's like, we don't know yet. And they won't know for months to come, maybe even years after this, to know how long this one continues and then the ramifications from it. So yeah, it's a struggle to find out.
So the state has come in and tried to help mitigate some of the issues that
Correct.
businesses may be experiencing. Can you talk a little bit about those state programs?
Yeah, so one of the first industries that was hit was our bars and restaurants, and they seemed to take the brunt of it at the very beginning with closing down to in-room dining and going to curbside pickup. One of the first things the state did was to defer sales tax for bars and restaurants of a certain size, and that's over 24,000 restaurants here in the state of Illinois. So hopefully that will help them. They will not be charged interest penalty payments for March, April, May if they're made late at this point in time, to give them an opportunity to make up some of the funds or revenues at this time. We do know that from the order that came out yesterday that bars and restaurants are still allowed to have curbside pickup. So we want to continue to encourage you to visit our local bars and restaurants, to order food from them, to go to continue to pick it up and support them in any way possible.
Do you think that any of them are selling gift cards for the future?
I think many are selling gift cards for the future. I think you can order them online. Some of them have online. Some you can go there and pick them up. Even if you have a birthday coming out for someone, or if you would have office gifts that you would normally give out, this is a great time to buy gift cards to use in the future down the road. That's future income that they can count on, and that's income now that they can use.
So Wendy, I would assume most of your membership is smaller businesses.
It is smaller businesses. So one of the first things we did when all this was happening was a survey to our members to see the impact that's happening here locally. Most of them are having to deal with restricted spending, which is common. A lot of them are having events canceled, which that goes to the not-for-profits and the churches. A lot of that's the way that their funding comes in, is through events that they hold. But of the members that were surveyed, 86% of them are going to have a medium to high impact on their business, meaning it's going to hit them financially, or they may have to close their doors. And of those numbers, 86% of them were business with employees of 50 or less. So that's quite a few here in our community, and it's a lot of people that would be impacted.
So basically people are choosing between the livelihoods and the economy and saving lives.
Correct. One other thing we do know that's happening, especially now at the stay-at-home, is if our businesses are having to lay off their employees, the Illinois Department of Employment is offering employment for those people. We have resources on our website that people can go to connect you to IDES to see how the employment is doing. They have increased the staff numbers. You can't go in person, but you can call in to get online. They ask you just to be patient and hold. They're hiring more workers. The average wait time is 30 minutes right now till you can get to talk to a caseworker.
Is the Chamber of Commerce open?
So we are open virtually. We, like everybody else, are social distancing, but we have gone to a virtual office location. We tell our businesses they can still get a hold of us. We are still working for them. We have been on countless phone calls, email threads, webcasts, anything trying to find out the information for our businesses. We want to be a central repository for our businesses. There is so much information out there, but there's so misguided information out there as well. And for a small business, it's hard to go to all the different websites and be on all the different conference calls to find the correct information. So we encourage businesses, whether they are a chamber member or just a local business, to call our office, and we will find those information for you. We will take the time to research it and get it back out there. On our website, we have a special page dedicated to COVID-19. So it's got all kind of business resources out there, linking them to the CDC, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Association, to your guys' website, to the local St. Clair County Health Department website. Anything we can think of that they would need, we have links out there for them. So they can go to one website and click on one thing instead of having to go to 20 websites and still not finding the answer that they need.
So you're doing this even for businesses that aren't members of the Chamber?
We are. I mean, at this time, it's all of us together. So I think the hashtag I sent out on our last email communication was Stronger Together, and that's the way we're going to get through this, is together.
Do you have a list of the restaurants that are offering carryout in your region?
So we're working on that. There's actually a community page out there for St. Clair County restaurants. It's on Facebook, but a lot of our community members have put that together, and so they're trying to keep a rolling list going. It's really hard to do that, and I'm glad the community is doing it. There's ones located for downtown Main Street, but there's also a page out there for the entire county, so I would refer to that one as well.
Great. Wendy, anything else you need to add?
I just think that I just want businesses to know that, this is a trying time, but the Chamber is here to help you. Please feel free to reach out to us. Any questions you may have on small business loans that are out there now, we know that those are available through Governor Pritzker's adding it to the Small Business Administration. All 102 counties in Illinois were approved to be able to apply for the small business loans. We'll be working with our local agent here to get representation to the businesses. So if they need assistance in filling out the application, we're able to connect them to the right person to do that. So we just want to know that we are here for you and we support your businesses, and we're a small business too. So, what affects businesses in our community also affect us as well.
Thank you. We've got a very vibrant economy in St. Clair County, and we're going to recover from
We do. So stronger together.
Wendy, could you give out the number for anybody who may need some information from the chamber?
Yeah, so our phone number is 618-233-2015. Our website is bellevillechamber.org, and you can find all the information there. Please give us a call, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible.
Great. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you very much.
Well, we really appreciate Wendy coming in, sharing that information for our businesses, because as we've talked about, there's none of us that aren't being affected by this. And I think from what she said there just a few moments ago, we've got to help these businesses out. And there's so much information out there that needs to be getting to the right people. So we really appreciate Wendy coming in and talking with Chairman Kern about how small businesses or big businesses can be assisted during this time. At this time, I want to welcome the Assistant Director of EMA, Brian Whitaker, who is going to go over some of the lengthy items that were in the Governor's executive order yesterday. We have been inundated with phone calls and messages on our page, and I want to say thank you to everybody who's been following the EMA page, leaving your comments. We're trying to answer as many of them as possible, and we will continue to do that. But Brian, if you would, I know you've read through the executive order like Randy and I have about 30 different times, trying to field those questions. So if you would you kind of summarize to the followers today on maybe some of those questions that was asked to us?
Absolutely. One of the big things that was stressed both through the press conference and in the executive order is that essential services need to continue. And there are people that need to be doing that. So hospitals, governmental offices, long-term care facilities, places that produce food, distribution, business management, your utilities, water, sewer, gas, distribution centers, stores that sell groceries and medicine, organizations that provide charitable and social services, media, gas stations, businesses needed for transportation, the finance industry, hardware and supply stores, critical trades, mail and posting, educational institutions, but solely for the purpose of facilitating distance learning and providing meals. As you know, they announced yesterday, education is also suspended through the state until at least that April 7th. Restaurants still for off-site consumption, suppliers that provide products to work from home, suppliers that provide products for essential businesses and operations, public transit, home-based care, residential facilities and shelters, professional services such as auditing, hotels and motels to the extent used for lodging and carry-out foods, funeral services, and then manufacturing, distribution, and supply chains for critical products and industries. Those are all organizations that can continue. And what we've been stressing to anybody that's talked to us is look through the exemptions in the governor's executive order and see if your business falls in one of those exemptions. The purpose of this is not to try and find a place you can fit. It's to determine if you feel your business is essential, is there an exemption there for you? What it does say is those who must close. Most retail. Most of the retail stores that don't provide grocery or pharmacy or home health products are instructed to close. All of the recreation and entertainment businesses, the movie theaters, the roller skating rinks, all those have been instructed to close, and a lot did prior even to this executive order. Beauty salons, barber shops, tattoo parlors, those are all instructed to close. And then when you look, they talked about parks and areas like that. They did close the playgrounds. Anywhere that you would come in contact, they discourage anyone from being on those. If you have a park that has a walking trail with like exercise equipment, don't be on the equipment if you're out there walking on that trail. And then anybody that does choose to stay open, there's 2 pages worth of guidance that they must comply with as far as social distancing, sanitizing, and having all those necessary products there for anybody that would choose to come there.
One of the questions that was on there frequently last night was about daycare centers. Can you elaborate on what that is?
One of the things the governor did do is he closed daycare centers for any daycare center that would have more than 6 children. There is now an emergency application process that the governor spoke about today during his press conference, and he said they've already had over 100 applicants for that you can apply to become an emergency licensed daycare based on this situation, but they're still limiting that to 6 children or less. And they have given home-based daycares the ability to become unlicensed as long as they're only housing 6 children or less. So the governor very much stressed he understands that everybody that's working in these essential services still needs daycare, but the numbers have to be smaller. We have that new executive order that says groups of no larger than 10 anywhere, and the 10 should be within your own family. You shouldn't be going to a friend's house or a neighbor's house or anything like that. So they had to put strict guidance like this in place.
Well, and that's just kind of a summary of the executive order, which takes effect today at 5 p.m.
Today at 5 p.m. through April 7th. One last thing that was a big aspect of this, and something we've fielded a lot of questions on, is what's allowed for travel. Because as you read through the executive order, one of the very first things it does is it bans travel. But then it lists the exemption of the allowable travel. Well, you are allowed to travel to perform any essential functions of daily living, like going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, any essential government functions, any business or operation functions. So if you are an essential business, you are able to travel to and from work. You can travel to care for the elderly, minors, dependents, or person with disabilities, or other vulnerable persons. You can travel to receive materials for distance learning or meals or anything related to educational institutions. You can travel if you're returning from a place of residence from outside of the state of Illinois. You can travel if you're following the direction of law enforcement or a court order that includes transportation of children pursuant to a custody agreement. That was something we had a lot of questions about last night. I've got a custody agreement. I'm supposed to take my child to and from the other parent. That is allowable travel. And finally, if you're leaving the state of Illinois to return to your state of residence. The only caveat to that one was they encourage you to make contact with that state first to make sure you're allowed to travel through there.
So as you can see, there's a lot of information in that executive order that's just touching the surface of it. We've got a number that we've listed on the screen.
We do. As you'll see on your screen now, the governor's office has listed a number that is 1-800-889-3931. And that number is for anyone that has questions after they've reviewed. One of the things we posted on our social media is please review the document first. Please understand and limit those phone calls to necessary and important questions, because just as was discussed earlier with the unemployment lines, that phone line is going to be busy as well.
Exactly, and the other thing is don't be calling the 911 centers asking those questions, because they're not going to be able to give you the answer. You'll only be tying up those emergency lines. Those 911 operators, telecommunicators are going to be there taking care of the emergencies. As we said all this week, you shouldn't be calling there asking them where you can go get a test at, because one, they can't tell you, they don't know, and they are busy taking care of emergency calls. So please be considerate of our telecommunicators and those 911 centers, as well as our first responders, our nurses, our doctors. As you heard the chairman and Wendy talk about, we're all in this together. There's nobody by themselves. We're going to continue to bring this information to you daily until we determine that we don't need to do that anymore.
And you mentioned our healthcare workers, doctors, and nurses. I think something important to mention from our conference call with the governor earlier today, one of the things he announced on his press conference, one of the things that they're doing in the state is they're asking retired healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists to come out of retirement. And beginning Monday on the state's coronavirus page, they will have instructions for an escalated renewal process for them to get their licensure back.
Well, and that's one thing I do want to touch on while we're sitting here. In a few minutes, there's been a couple of comments that's come up on our page. One particular question is, are we overreacting? I can't tell you how to think. I can only tell you, and we're going to bring you the information that is given to us. Whether you hear it from 1, 2, 3, 10, or different sources, pick your source. listen to it, because that's what we're doing. We attend multiple conference calls a day with the governor's office, with the Department of Public Health, with IEMA, and the list goes on and on. We're getting that information, and yes, you may hear it tonight on your local news channel. You may hear it on the national news channel. I really don't care where you hear it from, but we're going to tell you what is immediately affecting St. Clair County, and that's what we're going to be doing here until we determine that it doesn't need to be done anymore. So Brian, I appreciate you telling them just a summary of that executive order, which goes in effect at 5 p.m. today. Call that number after you've reviewed that executive order. Leave your questions on here, and we will try to get to them and answer them to them as quickly as possible. We'll see you tomorrow. We have a special guest who will be joining us tomorrow afternoon that I think you'll be interested in also. Everybody have a good rest of the day. Thank you.